inspire, greatness at track number 9. Stay on the right track and let your light shine. Step by step, reach for what's true. Track number 9, your greatness is waiting for you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to track number 9. I'm excited that you're here. And as always, I thank you. Good morning, Sister Cheryl, always from the West Coast. They say the West Coast is the best coast. We got Cheryl tuning in from California. My good brother Brock, Baron Brock is here. But today, guys, we have a studio full of individuals from different paths, different religions, and all bringing a certain energy. In the studio, we was talking about energy and big energy and what energy means. But I'm super excited to bring in these guests. We have a studio full of people. I'm just so happy because having them on today is going to be a reminder that human beings, when they exist together, regardless of the space that they are in, they can create something beautiful. That's why God put us here. God put us here so that we, regardless of your religion, your race, creed, sexual identity, God put us here so that we can coexist and continue to create some beautiful things. So, The Soul Knows No Bars. It's a book that was collaborated with Dr. Drew Liedel, Orlando Trey Jones, John Woodland, and my good friend Charles Baxter. The foreword was written by Cornel West, and we know Dr. Cornel West is one of our foremost thinkers. Um, but the idea that these folks can come together while incarcerated with a professor, with a doctor to create this, it makes the person curious to see what is in this book and what is it that these human beings created together. So I'm super excited about this. So we're going to go ahead and bring our guests in the studio. Hey, there we go. There we go. Well, unfortunately, our very handsome Trey Orlando Jones, you won't be able to see him, but you certainly will be able to hear him. So we have Charles Baxter, John Woodland, and Dr. Drew Liedel and Trey Orlando Jones, the creators of this wonderful masterpiece, The Soul Knows No Bars. Good morning, Sister Gwen Levi. So good, so glad you could join us. The first thing I'm going to ask is how did you guys meet? Dr. Drew, I'll start with you. How did you meet these wonderful gentlemen?
Well, I started volunteering as a philosophy professor. I teach in a university in Baltimore, Maryland, and I just kind of had the desired inspiration to teach in a prison setting, with the idea that people whose body is incarcerated, their mind, their soul is still free to fly, but they also need assistance and resources. Um, and this at the time was called the Maryland State Penitentiary, the oldest continuously operating penitentiary in the Western world. It dated back to the early 1800s, and it looked like it. And it was the state penitentiary for the state of Maryland. And so the other people on the show today were students. This was way, way back in 1992. And we had such a great class. For some reason, this would never happen now, but we were permitted to audio tape it and then work off those audio tapes to create the book that you showed a couple of minutes ago.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Baxter, tell me about your experience and what you thought of that. So you guys were in a class. You were taking a class, a college course or something.
Yes, we was taking a college course in philosophy, and
Mm.
Dr. Drew Leader was the teacher of the class. And smack in the middle of it, someone say, "Let's tape it and see what we'll get out of the taping." And we started taping the sessions, and Dr. Drew Leader say, "Let's see, can we turn it into a book form?" And we said, "Awesome." And Cornell West came in, and I met him, I hugged him, and embraced him, and gave him a appendix. It was very exciting.
That's wonderful. I do want to reflect on one of the themes that Dr. Leader has shared. You had mentioned that the body is incarcerated, but the mind is free. And there's a movie called The Birdman of Alcatraz. And one of the things when I watched that movie, The Man of Alcatraz, I think the guy name was Burt Lancaster that played in this movie, right?
Right.
My grandmother thought all of these guys was good looking. You couldn't tell her that these guys playing in these films weren't just good looking. He was chiseled. But one of the things that I walked away with watching this movie, The Birdman of Alcatraz, is that wherever you are, even if you are in solitary confinement, your mind is still free. And your mind has to be free. Once your mind gets locked down and caged in, you lose it. So I've seen people in solitary confinement go absolutely bananas. They can no longer think. They became mentally ill because they were locked down for so long and their minds weren't free. So I really like the idea of what you mentioned. The body is incarcerated, but the mind is free. And even in society right now, people are walking around free as a bird physically, but they're not free in their minds. They because they have different things that's weighing them down that keeps them from being able to think beyond a drug. They have things in their mind that they can't think beyond obsessions and things. They're not free. They are not free at all. So okay, are all the men that collaborate at home. Sister Cheryl, yes, ma'am. Sister Cheryl from the West Coast asks, are all the gentlemen who collaborated in this book at home? So I'll go ahead and transition to this next question individually. We'll start with Trey. Trey, how many years did you serve behind the wall?
37 years, 2 months, and 1 day.
Thank
Or,
you.
and more succinctly, 13,577 days.
Wow, 13,577 days. Mr. Woodland, what about you? How many years you served behind the wall?
I served 37 years, 6 months, and 16 days.
Wow. Wow, man. And what about you, Mr. Baxter? How many years did you serve behind the wall?
I served 43 years.
43 years. So we talking about 14, 17, 6, 7. Man, we're talking about over 100 and some odd years between the three of you guys.
Can I make an interjection, Miss Monica?
Of course, yes, sir.
John spent more time in, Charlie spent more time in, and this proved that they are both better men than I am. But
Yes,
because my camera is off, I
Yes, sir.
can't prove to the world that I'm slightly better looking.
Well, look, we'll have an opportunity. Yes, sir. We'll have an opportunity to see your handsome face.
Can I-
Because go ahead, Dr. Drew. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll just mention, I think it's a matter of public record, so I'm going to use his name, but another member of our class, Wayne Brown, is still in after 43
Oh, wow.
years. I just have to download for him 300 certificates of completion of different courses and programs. So people become very accomplished
Mm,
in a prison setting, but it's certainly not recognized very often by the parole board. And we
mm,
really over incarcerate people here in this country, especially black and brown people, if you look at the demographics of the prison population. So that's maybe the subtext of the individual stories that people are telling. You
I
can see how
appreciate
much they have to contribute now that they finally been released.
Yeah, yeah, I certainly appreciate that comment, and I agree. And it is definitely widely known that the United States incarcerate more of its citizens than anybody in the whole world. And not only that, there is a there's an over incarceration of black and brown individuals, and that's a fight that I continue to fight myself, doing work in Annapolis on legislative initiatives for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals. But that is certainly a lot of time to serve behind a wall. But I want to also delve into the essence of the book.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, yeah, I want to delve into the essence of the book and the contributions. Do you guys like remember any of the chapters that you helped to write, or
Uh,
anything you mentioned in the book, or what you felt you wanted to come out of the book? We're gonna start with Mr. Woodland.
Okay. There was a chapter that dealt with the panopticon, and it was a concept by philosopher Foucault, and it dealt with architecture,
Mm,
how this architecture was designed for a person to be able to have control over a certain amount of people. And we would talk about how this type of architecture, you can usually find it in places where you find people that are dealing with poverty or people that are
mm,
incarcerated. And it was really something that struck to me because I could see that type of architecture not just
mm,
off in the penitentiary, but I could also see it in the projects,
mm,
the high-rise projects of Baltimore City, how they tried to keep people locked into a certain type of environment and into a certain type of architecture that controlled them and made it able for other people outside to kind of look in on them and to see what they're doing and things of that nature. So this chapter that dealt with the panopticon was interesting to me.
okay, so it's called the Panopticon.
okay.
Okay, that's interesting chapter, and I can say that I can see that clearly because when we go through what they call urban development and urban revitalizations, like every city, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Baltimore, all of these. Good morning, Dr. Michelle Madden. But all of these cities are built in a way that it contains the black community, and when they design their bus routes, when they have buses that go to, like here in Baltimore, Canton, Fells Point. Hey, my man Darnell Wharton, good morning. That's my old boss right there. Good morning, Darnell. But when they design cities and they start to build and looking at the future of a city, they make sure that the buses that come from the so-called ghetto, they make sure that it don't go to certain places. Like right now here in Baltimore, they are arguing about whether or not they want to extend transportation that goes to the Canton area or the Fells Point area. I think the red line, part of the red line being shut down was that people were saying we don't want those people to be able to travel to our community. Certain buses they cut the bus route off at a certain time at night. So you can only get this bus up until that time. So I can clearly see how buildings and architectures are built almost to keep people in a maze. There's a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And that in that book, that's what it reminds me of, a maze, like you have a rat inside of an experiment, but he can only go around in this area. And that's how it feels in the so-called ghetto in in some urban communities. It feel like this place is only Mosier Street, Calhoun Street, Pennsylvania Avenue, like it's designed to just keep you in this maze, if you will. So I definitely appreciate that comment, Brother John. What about you, Mr. Baxter? What your give us an idea of something that you added to the book, or something that you're proud of, and help give people meaning to what is actually
Right
in.
there, right there, what you was talking about. We did a part in the book dealt with time and space, and dealing with time and space, it dealt with how did you spend your time in the limited amount of space that you had
Mm,
in that environment. And I found that chapter very important to me because a lot of time in my cell, I didn't have a TV because I was trying to get my degree from college. So I took my TV and put it under my bunk, and I lost interest of TV. I still
mm,
don't watch TV till today. Uh, my time and space was reading and
mm,
trying to get my degree. But something else that I did in my time, in my space, in myself, and Trey, you know, he had real difficulties about that. Is that I got my cell painted. I had my Oriental rugs on the floor. Uh, I had my gators all around the cell and stuff. You know, I had my rack across my cell with my garments. You know, because I didn't care where I was at. I made my best situation out of that situation. I took my household and still made it my palace.
mm. Time and space.
Time and space.
And space, yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. Go to Trey. Trey,
Yeah.
what about the contribution in the book that you want us to know so people can get an idea of what is actually in the book? And I'm gonna repeat the book for you guys. The Soul Knows No Bars. The title itself. Inmates reflect on life, death, and hope. The Soul Knows No Bars. Very interesting title. So we're going to go to Trey, Mr. Lando. Tell us what you like your contribution. What is it in the book that you want folks to know and understand? Bring us something out of the book.
I try to think of just one thing, but and if I have to limit it, it would have to just be to the book coming into development itself, the
Mm-hmm.
courage and strength that it took just to be a part of that, because we had to, develop intellectually. And remember, we talk in 1992, and we got Drew Leader, unapologetically Jewish, and Father Tim Brown representing this Catholic institution, opposing a certain Islam that we was like grew up in. Brother John and them moving from Nation of Islam to Sunni, and we're talking about, like, for example, that the Panopticon, how structure was designed to dwarf the individual. And we're learning that in order to best these social economic conditions that we're in, is remember the Republicans just took over, lock them all up, and we are compelled to go against our greatest impulses to come above that ugly penitentiary.
Mm.
And it came down to like what was like 13 people in that class, and we're talking about Nietzsche and we're talking about race, and if you look through the sections, the intellectualism into those discussions demanded that you fight the demagoguery on the tears and come here. I mean, there were certain fist fights outside those classrooms. And I remember how when we discussed certain social issues, and it was open class, remember, Drew? And brothers that were so centered in one direction, and Drew would have to bring in visitors like Cornell West through the looking glass series to combat the demagoguery. 1992 penitentiary. You know what I mean? Nation
Yes,
of Islam, white folks, produced by Hugo. And and happened to go above that. And that's what that class demanded. So when you see that 13 of us there, right, from diverse places, like Brother Donald Thomas, who's still in prison because he was, sentenced to death and all that kind of stuff. And I think about the sections involving Nietzsche, how everything that we want to do is based on our will to power. Even a lovely person like Mother Teresa was so magnanimous because she wanted people to look at her and say, how, and then submit to her. And we would have conversations, the essence of those things. And so that what gave birth to that book. If you're not moved to intellectualism, the soul knows no bars is not for you. Like me and HB, he would oppose my intellectual and scholarship more than anyone. And after I think about the things that he would say, I wouldn't admit that he was correct on points. You know what I mean? And oh man, it was just the whole moment was so beautiful. And I look back and many of us aren't here. But that's the thing that I think about in this moment, the zeitgeist, that time, because you can't really appreciate a moment when you're living through it. It's only when you look back at it that you can appreciate it. Like when Charles was just talking about space and time, and when he beautified his cell, that gave, and I later did the same thing, not to his, all that, how he did it, but I learned to appreciate what space and to create that own time meant because of that classroom. And,
all right, well, I appreciate that. And I guess, Dr. Leader, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just want to mention when you look at the cover of The Soul Knows No Bars, the person you're seeing is the person that was just mentioned by Trey, H.B. Johnson. He unfortunately died of AIDS, contracted in prison shortly after his release. But 2 out of 3 years, we had a major kind of, local network TV station that would run a contest for the best Black playwright in Maryland. And HB won that 2 out of 3 years.
Wow.
I think when he entered prison, he had a 9th grade education, but he became very passionate about reading and writing and quite a brilliant playwright. So shortly before his death, he got to see his play put on quite professionally by a professional acting group in Baltimore at Loyola University, Maryland. So there just were very talented people in the class. Trey, he's a very, very modest guy, right, Trey? But he hasn't mentioned that he's published 2 books with Loyola University's Apprentice House Press. One is called Eager Street. And I'll let you say the name of the other one, the newer one. Trey, you want to mention that?
Old Too Fast, Smart Too Late. A Business Fruitless Journey to Wisdom.
Old Too Fast, Smart Too Late. Okay.
The first book was about growing up in Baltimore and getting involved in the drug game and other, kind of fairly rough things that he went through as a child and adolescent. Takes us up to about mainly into his period of incarceration, which began at age 17. I think 16. You were released 16 and you were released, maybe you were 52? 54. So that's an example of extreme incarceration of a juvenile. And then the second book is kind of about the journey he took in prison. They're both excellent. So we'll throw in those references.
Okay. I certainly appreciate that. And it has, Brother Clarence, I'm glad you could join us this morning. He just texted me and say, hey, I can't get in. He's here now, so I'm certainly glad he could be here. I guess a few things. Wow, there we go. Old Too Fast, smart too young. I always tell our viewers, make sure you have yourself a pen when you come here, because you are always going to walk away with something and some information that's going to add to your life, that's going to add to your knowledge of what's going on in the world around us. Thank you for posting that. Old too fast, smart too young, a
Too late.
prisoner's fortune
Too late.
journey. Smart, old too fast, smart too late. I got it. I got it. I apologize. And I don't know if you saw that picture of yourself, Trey, if you could see that picture, but there you go.
Yes,
He wanted to
that's the
make sure
reason.
everybody saw his handsome face. So now the whole world knows about this good looking fella. Appreciate
I am
it.
humbled by that. I truly am. I truly
Yes,
am.
sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. And I want to go
Miss,
back. Go ahead, there, brother. Go ahead,
yes,
Charles.
Miss Monica Cooper. Me and Trey, we do something that's very exciting at No Older College. We goes back and sometime and sit with Dr. Drew Lee and sit next to him and teaches in class.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we had we had talked about something called the power of now. Is I'm right? And I'm saying it right, Doc.
Yeah. Hmm.
And Doc had told the class that my power of now was that I had told him 35 years before I was released that my power now will be one day to sit next to him and teach in class. And it
Wow.
came to manifestation.
Woo. Oh boy. That one hit me in my heart, man. My brother Darnell was here. He'll post in a minute. He started to see my eyes get all shiny, and he'll put it in the chat. She about to cry. He knows me well. You know, I get emotional about it because the idea that a man incarcerated, expected to die in prison, expected to die in prison. But I always talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. God will release them chains. God will set you free. And that is whether you're inside of a prison or if you're out here and yet free. So it's just the power of our Lord that we should never underestimate. Never underestimate that this guy was expected to die in prison. After
That's right.
40 some odd years, he manifested what he wanted. He manifested it. They say, you know, if you think it, you see it, you can achieve it. It's your vision. This is your vision right here. It comes from here, and you see it. This is both your heart and your brain. These two are the same to me. So if you can think it, you can see it, you can bring it into fruition. So I am very moved by that. Fortunately, I didn't cry because I'll be on this show shedding tears like I don't know what, and it feels good. It feels good to be able to share the who I really am without having a mask on, without having to appear so tough because I'm from Sandtown. I ain't taking no this is a family show, so I ain't gonna curse. But that's usually the bravado I had to come up with. And as I got older and became a beautiful woman, a God-fearing woman, I was able to let that stuff go. It felt so good, not having to be tough all the time, not having to carry ratchets all the time, not having to look over my shoulder, not knowing if I'm gonna get robbed, if the police gonna catch me, just so I can pay some bills. So I'm free in that sense, and I'm still working to be more free. Hey, my man here, Bobby Pittman. Bobby Pittman say he took some of those classes at JCI. He runs an organization now called Champ Nation. I'm glad you're here, Bobby. That's my guy. But I want to go back to something that Dr. Drew, well, actually, I believe it was Brother Trey had mentioned Jewish, Catholic, and Muslim. All people of all of these different faiths were able to come together in the spirit of the one living God and to be able to create that. And what we see now is we see a world where they bomb Palestine. We see a world where the Christians are not safe in Muslim spaces. We see a world where I mean, it's just chaotic when it comes to all these different religious sects. We had the Pope; he had to step to our current president. He had to say, "Hold up, chump. Wait a minute. I'm not scared of you, Mister." This is what I said. Our current Pope had to actually make a statement after he was being attacked, I say, man, when you attacking a Pope, he put his gloves on though. The Pope came back swinging. I thought that was interesting. The Pope came back, pop, pop, pop. I say, damn, boy, the Pope even getting in this fight, which I
No
thought was.
one has ever beat a fight with the Pope. And in that class, and maybe in them sections, we talked about Gregorian, Pope Gregory, who,
Yes.
like during the 13th century, organized a hit against everybody who opposed the church. And think about it, this was before cell phones and internet. And this is something that we discussed in that class, because that classroom demanded that you transcend like racial issues, social issues, in order to get to where you wanted to be. Because remember, some of us in that classroom were actually sentenced to death, to actually go into the gas chamber. And what Drew brought in, and what resonates with me, is that the greatest teachers, and I got to put Drew among them, is that they don't teach a damn thing. Because Drew didn't. He didn't teach a single thing in that classroom. But he exposed us to the greatest wisdom of the world. Like, if you see how we went through ancient, and even as you speak about Christianity, because I'm unapologetically a Christian, I'm as proud of the best of it as I'm ashamed of the worst, right? I remember the discussions of Job in that book. You don't even get the discussions of Job in Bible study. And in it, and when you talked about coming up in Sandtown and have to go through it, the violence that's needed. In that classroom, we learned that the word violence comes from the Latin word viciu. Am I pronouncing it right, Drew? The Latin word that means life force, viciu.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, he often had to correct me with these, he acquaint me with these big ass words, but then not the ability to pronounce them correctly. Like we at Oil Park, and the word anathema now, but I was pronouncing it anathema, whatever. And he corrects me, and I always love it, because what he exposed me to allows me to do what I do now, like in drug treatment, that serve for purpose of attraction, to help people that are suffering through the scourge of crime, drugs, the legislation that inflicted the poverty on the community. Absent that class and what I was exposed to, I wouldn't be able to do this, because when I was released, I started working at Georgetown to teach, like Brother Charlie enjoyed doing. And that's about so much promotion. And that's great, but to get the education that Loyola allowed us to get in the penitentiary, I mean, it gave me so much confidence, Monica. I thought I could be the Pope after Pope Francis died. And I mean, I had that much confidence. And then a friend of mine reminded me that I wasn't even Catholic. So it's not possible that I could be the Pope. But the confidence that education gives you is that great. And what saddens me now is we're in an era of time where those conversations that develop us to be the people that could, bear the burdens of that is not even appreciated now. In the streets, a slang is "What's up, dummy?" What's up, dummy?
Yeah.
I come to a time where you can call me the B word, the P word, and might get away with it, but you call me dumb, we were fighting, right? And classrooms, if you was dumb, you was in 735 or 725 or whatever, because it was a certain importance ascribed to education.
Yes, sir.
If you want to get well wherever you are, you can't do it without an education. And I think what Drew and Father Tim Brown and Loyola brought into the penitentiary is unappreciated when it's expressed, right? Because you know, my grandmother's grandmother would have been punished by death to learn to read and write. You know what I mean?
I
And
do. I do.
for us to not appreciate the quality of the education now is very disturbing. Remember, the
Yes.
soul knows no bars.
Yes.
To be
The
given
soul knows
information.
no laws. Hey Trey, I wanna hop to my guests. I have a sister Patrice Benbow was able to join us. Some of our guests are just hopping in, and I just want to go back and revisit what we're talking about today. Today, brother Clarence is here. Oh yeah, and another brother you might know, Marion Dixon Bay. He was
Ah,
just able to join us. So what I
myself.
want to do is I want to let them know that we are talking about a book called The Soul Knows No Bars. And we have in our studio audience the contributors of that book. Dr. Drew Leader, Trey is here, Mr. Woodland is here, Charles Baxter is here, and Dr. Leader. So we want to continue the conversation. And I found it interesting and to revisit again. Here you have folks from the Jewish background, Catholic background, Muslim background, all creating this book, The Soul Knows No Bars. Inmates reflect on life, death, and hope. And as I had mentioned earlier, when you, and maybe I didn't, but when you are a captive audience, because that's what I called it after, giving them, they gave me a 20-year sentence as well. And I had time to sit and think. And it reminds me of in the Bible, the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus was talking to the people, and you have to really, in order for sometimes some human beings to get it, God got to get your attention, and he's got to have you in a still position. Sometimes people end up in a hospital. They laid up there for 90 days, 6 months, and they facing their demise. They facing their mortality. Then you start to reflect and think about time. How did I use my time on this earth? What am I leaving behind for my children? Did I set a good example for my grandbabies? So when you're incarcerated, that tends to be the Sermon on the Mount. That's when God can meditate on your mind. That's when God can really work on your spirit and really open you up to the world so that you can reflect on life, death, and what hope looks like. So I really have a deep appreciation for this work because as one who have that lived experience, I know what my coming to age was. It wasn't until my own incarceration that I was able to grow past my selfishness. It wasn't until my own incarceration that I was able to see other human beings and accept them for who they are without getting upset and mad because of this person is this person is that, and I'm displeased with them. That's my stuff. So I will say that in a space like that, there is nothing but pure growth, and there's nothing but production of things that can help other people produce. You can produce a work like this. You can produce something that other human beings can read and learn from. Because there's people out here who've never been incarcerated and never reached that level of understanding of life, death, and hope. They never been incarcerated and they never reached that level to have at least an inkling of understanding of what life, death, and hope looks like. So I definitely appreciate, all of my folks who just hopping in here. And I will say that because I'm the devil's advocate a little bit. It was Nietzsche that said, "Religion is the opiate for the masses." So when we talk about religion, as you guys, as I mentioned, that you guys, Jewish, Catholic, and Muslim, we have the Christian right wing. You have Christian people who actually think that it's okay to lynch and murder another person and then go to church on Sunday. You have Muslim brothers and sisters who would put a bomb on their body and go into a space and say, well, I'm going to be a martyr. When I transition, I'm going to be greeted with 73 virgins, and Allah is going to bless me for going in here and murdering these people. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as we try to find our way in our prospective religions. And what does that mean on the philosophy side? what does that mean in terms of life, death, and understanding hope when people have philosophical views or religious views that kind of seem like that's not of God? And that's a tough one. Just maul on that for a minute. I'm gonna start with Dr. Drew. I want each one of y'all to kind of answer that. So maul on it just a little bit about what that means, especially in the current climate that we're living in now. I'm gonna start with Dr. Drew.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think all the different religions of the world speak to the same kind of core mystical truth
Mhm.
of, love God and love thy neighbor. For example, in Judaism, there's also a really big emphasis on you were a stranger in the land of Egypt, so welcome the stranger,
Mhm.
be one with the stranger. And obviously, in our society, people have been incarcerated and labeled as, violent criminals and a menace. They've become estranged. They are the stranger who is excluded. So there was actually an article in the Baltimore Sun about just as a kind of, I don't know, gesture of love and respect, me giving Charlie a Torah, and Charlie gifting me with a Quran. And just, I think we all have the sense that whether you were religious or not, we needed to kind of transcend those kind of sectarian disputes and find the truth that we're all human beings. We all have a divine spirit. And everybody in the house, I think, was one in terms of that kind of sense of community and unity.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you for that comment. We're gonna go to Mr. Woodland, and then we'll go to Mr. Baxter, and then to Trey. Mr.
Yeah,
Woodland, what do you think about that?
I think right now we're living in a time where people are more interested in advocating their position and in imposing their will on other people. There's a certain aspect of religious where you get into the spiritual aspect of it. As a Muslim, I'm more conscious that my jihad is with myself, is to
Mm,
try to improve myself so that through my example of living, it can teach people about Islam. I'm not, but at other times you have people that want to try to impose that type of religious beliefs on others so that they can let people know that, hey, this is our sense of power. This is where we are at, and this is how we can have control over you. I think
mm,
at the time that we did this book, um, we had a sense there of consciousness, and that type of consciousness was kind of helping us make this transitional transformation from prison to out of prison. Even though our bodies were incarcerated, our minds were. And every time we came down to this class, we would have a discussion that would take us outside of the penitentiary. We would talk about
mm,
other people and how you treat people, you
mm,
know, and this type of acquisition of knowledge kind of helped us, develop into certain kind of people that we didn't see ourselves as imposing our will on others was the way to solve problems. We felt that, hey, our consciousness and our actions was the way to get other people to see how to improve themselves and how to make things better. And I think that's something that's lacking at this time from coming from the White House and from other countries. They're not trying to show through an example what's the best way to accomplish things. They are trying to show by imposing their power and their will on people that, hey, this is how you get things done. And it's a very unique and turbulent time right now that we're living through. And it's something that, a lot of people have to kind of go back and look at themselves and say, hey, what can I do to make things better? rather than how can I impose myself on somebody to make things better the way I want them to be.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I just want to remind those who are just joining us, all four of our guests, we have Dr. Drew Liedl, we have Charles Baxter, we have Mr. John Woodland, and Orlando Trey Johnson. And all of these human beings came together while these gentlemen were incarcerated. One served 37 years, another served 37 years, another served 43 years. So 117 years between the three. And this wonderful professor saw an opportunity to present a gift to the world with this unique collaboration. So as we listen in, and of course, drop your comments in the chat. And I believe our producer, he had added some information there that Loyola also do a mediative type of practice inside the prison systems now, because we know that a lot of that stuff, we want the people who are incarcerated, we want them to come home to us. They say rehabilitated. I simply say come home and be better human beings and contributors to your communities. The people who are behind the wall, we want the investment in them, in programs, in opportunities like these brothers were able to go to college, because it helps you. They call it higher learning. And they call it higher learning because it elevates the thinking. I am a graduate of the University of Baltimore, and I started my college career inside the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women. And again, it allowed me to think on a higher level because I started learning about myself, about people, other cultures. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in. I'm gonna go to Mr. Baxter and ask him again the same question that I just asked about religion and the world we see today, your contribution to the book, and what would you like to share with folks about the opportunity for us to do better when it comes to what we see in the world? Because I know that returning citizens are contributors. I know some people doing the best work that you could ever imagine. So let us hear from you, Mr. Baxter.
Well, when I was really introduced into religion of my own set coming into existence, I was 14 years old in a spot called Montrose. And I had met a guy in the Nation of Islam, and I was 14 years old, and I came home and I professed to be a member of the Fruit of Islam. And I wore my suits every day with carried my Muhammad speech under my arms. And but I had became a Muslim under the Sunni Muslims when I was like 17, 18. And I owned my own grocery store and bookstore when I was 19 years old, part ownership. So when I came into the penitentiary and I became the Sunni Muslim spiritual leader for 5 years of my life, it was easy for me because I knew how to treat people and how to deal with people. And some people questioned my generosity of my giving, but I had been that way before I come to prison. All my life I was a giver, and I continue to be that way today. But what has transpired and took place in my life, I'm out with Dr. Drew Liedl one day and we're having a meal. And he asked me how my father was doing. And I said he'd talk to him. And he talks to my father. My father gets off the phone and he says, stop calling him your Jewish friend. He says, he's your friend. Say he's been in your life over 30 years of your life. You say, I worked for the Italians up here in New York City. For 55 years of my life, I worked for one family. He said, they are my family. He said, Dr. Drew Liedl is your family. I treat him as such, and he treat me as such.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And thank you for that, brother. We're gonna go to Trey. Trey, you still with us? Tell us about your experience, the Jewish, Catholic, Muslim coming to mind, contribution to the book, and what you see that's happening now that could really help people move forward. Like I mentioned, they're bombing the Palestinians, the Catholics are being attacked. I mean, it's just And it's all in the name of religion. Even right here in this country, you have the alt-right who they're Christian. They call them the Christian right. They're Christian nationalists, if you will. And some of their views that they espouse don't seem more so Christian like. So share with us your thoughts on that.
Deep question, but the one thing to study in philosophy, and this class was philosophy on steroids, demanded that you have an understanding of that which you hate first. One thing that stands out when you mentioned, Israel bombing Gaza, I think of the word pogrom. That's not even used, but we talked about and learned in that class, where the Jewish community have faced this pogrom, and from century to century. And so as a people, they might, develop this sense of, I need to secure myself, protect myself. So when you study philosophy, before you throw your hatred out, you try to understand the people that you're demonstrating this to. Because, for example, I've never seen a person express anger that wasn't hurting first. And and in this philosophy class, we had to understand Nietzsche. Everything a person do is will to power. And then you learn about Epictetus and the Christian. All these opposing views. And it allows me today to have an understanding of the world. And I exist now because my own philosophy rooted in my Christian thinking, born from this class. Because my Lord and Savior Jesus only taught one thing, and that's love. And what do that mean? And remember the courses in discernment we had with Father Tim Brown. You break it down to the single word, the simplest sentence you can. What do love mean? And in every instance, when my Lord and Savior demonstrated love, he gave two things: the power to destroy and the trust not to. And it's so humbling. And when we did the course on the Tao Te Ching, the way in its power, you learned that all its power, every river and every stream flow to the ocean because the ocean is lower than them. And Jesus teaching love, wiping feet. And you think about Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, after he came back into Mecca and Medina, didn't tax the Jews, allowed them to have the mosque when their own temple was. And then you see the animus that's here now. And you say, this is in opposition to my greatest teaching. If I'm to be a Christian, how am I to love? If I'm going to be a Muslim, I got to prescribe life for me. I ain't got to make this complicated. And as a Jew, going through pogrom after pogrom, and this Jew guy, Jesus, my Lord and Savior, teaching you after going through all this shit, you still got to give to this world more than what you get. And that's an awesome burden for any human being to have to bear. And that's why philosophy classes always morph down to 13 or 10 or 15, because it's a subject that requires so much. And that's what I got from it.
Thank you. As we wind down, we got about maybe 7 or 8 more minutes. But I just want to remind the listeners that information is power. So I always appreciate you guys coming here and to join me every Saturday at 9 a.m. on your cell phones, on your laptops, in your living rooms, sipping on your tea, your coffee. And it's a gathering of minds. And on June 6th, we had to change the date of our. We're gonna be live. We're gonna be at the B&O Railroad. We're gonna have a live taping of the show, and all of our previous guests. You will be able to meet each one of them. All of these gentlemen that's here today, you'll be able to meet them June the 6th. But I guess what I would like to close out is like right now, currently, because I heard Trey mention that he was, incarcerated at 16 years old. And we see what's happening with the juveniles now. And it's so unfortunate that there's a 16-year-old that's probably facing a life sentence right now. And the life sentence that he's going to do is probably going to look different than the time that you guys have done. Um, what would you say? And I'm going to start with Dr. Drew Leader because I know that he's worked with a lot of people behind the walls and young and older. I'm going to start with him and say, what do you think? And I know this is a huge question, but what do you think the one thing, or at least the starting point, that we can do to prevent young people from spending 42 years and 37 years behind the wall? Um, what is the thing that you think that we could do to get them in schools and not on the streets, to get them in a book learning about philosophy and not in the streets? What do you think we can do for these young people? Because in Baltimore, that's all you hear about is the juveniles stealing the cars, killing people, doing this, doing that. I want each one of you guys to just briefly answer that for me. It's a large question, though.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to defer to the other people on the show,
Okay.
who've been through the Baltimore City public school system or some equivalent and maybe have a better sense of what's happening with young people and what would be of most assistance to them. First of all, kind of crime prevention.
Mm,
And then if they do get involved in a criminal life, I know there are people on the show who worked in something called Project Turnaround to try to actually bring those young people into prison and kind of turn them around in a different direction. So I'd love to hear from the other guys about how to, help that and diminish that incarceration punishment mindset.
okay, this time we'll start with Mr. Baxter.
Our youth really needs employment. They need to be educated in a sense that we don't look down on them unless we're giving them a hand up. And I think that hand starts with employment. And one may think I'm antiquated in my thinking, but I love marble steps. And I think that someone should show the kids a crew and show them go down there in Fowles Point, that they don't go down there to rob those people. But if they're going to rob them of their wealth by cleaning the marble steps for $125 a piece.
Mm, okay, okay. I appreciate you. What about you, Mr. Woodland?
I think it starts with the community. The community is how we kind of resolve our problems. So I think we need to, like, I see right now that there are a lot of community organizations that are developing and reaching out to youth. I think we start to need more of those type of community organizations, and I think there has to be an investment into the community, because when you see concentrated poverty, you kind of see a lot of these problems. So I think that it takes the community to come together and to start to come up with ideas on how we can reach these youth and keep them from this transition from school to prison. And I think it's also important that for businesses and other things to start investing in community. So as Charlie would say, we can provide these young people with opportunity to make money and to transition from where they are into a better life.
Okay, appreciate that comment. And what about you, Trey?
I mean, in all honesty, some of our youth genuinely need an ass whooping. Honestly, I mean, real talk. But and I'm going to borrow some of John Locke's quote that the best defense that we have against a callous and cold world is a thorough knowledge of it,
Mm, mm,
right? And I mean, there are some people in this world who believe that some people should be poor. And
mm,
the most violent thing that can be done to anybody is to inflict poverty on them,
mm.
right? And we already see, like, you have the Elon Musk, the Donald Trumps, and you have the George Soros, billions of dollars. But in order to have that kind of wealth, that means you have to have poverty. And even when I think about my Lord and Savior, when he was being anointed with that oil, and remember Judas approached him, said, "Can't we use this oil to feed the poor?" And the response was, "The poor gonna always be with us." And perhaps I'm seeing it now because I've developed and grown. God have always had the poor with us. Jesus have dealt with the poor. And I contend that by imbuing them with a thorough knowledge of the world, we teach our youth by getting the education. If you want to be out the ghetto, if you don't want to be broke, you don't want to be you got to get an education. You got to have a skill set. You can't be lazy. And so we have to make our schools much more vibrant and protected. Okay, if you want to do that old, I grew up in the 80s before the wire. 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds don't supposed to have guns or be able to do things. In the book Igor Street, when Drew made his gave me that fantastic introduction, he said my book answered the epistemological questions. How do a child become a criminal and why? It's our responsibility to keep our 13s and 14-year-olds from having guns, ass weapons.
Yes, sir.
You don't get to make that the choice. You don't get to make that choice. Rashid, no. Parents got to be more responsible. It's on us.
I appreciate that.
More vibrant and better. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I know the minister is definitely lecturing and asking, folks to step up and make our community safe. It is our responsibility to make our community safe. And when I was growing up, everybody around me let me know it was their responsibility. One time I hooked school, went downtown to the Mayfair Theater. And before I got home, I went to see this racing movie called Body Heat. Oh, it was a racing film. Oh, my God. I damn near covered my eyes because I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. My little conscience was getting to me. It was Kathleen Turner that played in this movie, and it was racy. Something I'd never seen. And me and my friends was looking at each other. We covered our eyes and stuff. We know we wasn't supposed to be there. Soon as I got home, my mother got the news, and we didn't have cell phones. I don't know how she learned. I said it probably was Miss Lillian. Miss Lillian was nosy, man. You couldn't do nothing. She always Miss Lillian knew everything. I say she probably the one that ratted on us. But anywho, I got in a world of trouble because the people around me, they would tell me, even if they were selling drugs on a corner, they would tell me, Monica, get your little butt around the corner. Get from around here. And the gentlemen in the communities, they always was dressed up. You never even knew they was shooting dope because that stuff stayed in the house. It stayed away from children. Even when things were happening, we didn't know it was happening. I had a great childhood. And I think nowadays it's people pointing the fingers. They'll say it's the responsibility of the mother, but she on drugs. She can't help. But somebody's got to step up, an aunt, an uncle. To me, if I had to say where we start, there has to be at least one responsible person in the child's life. And this way you can get him to school. It's got to be at least one person he listen to. It's got to be at least one person. And if you can find that one, then you work with that child. But this has been another great conversation. Sister Salima joined us here. Praise be to Allah. We had our sister Cheryl said this was my absolute best episode. When you start talking about Jesus the Christ, I know she lit up like a Christmas tree. Yes, indeed. She is a praying woman, a God-fearing woman. She said this was an outstanding panel, and I certainly agree. And we're going to do more of this. And I look forward to you all being at our live taping, and you guys can get to buy the book because we'll have it there. You guys can get to buy Eager Street and purchase Trey's book and actually get to meet these human beings in person at our live taping of track number 9 on June the 6th, 12 to 4 at the B&O Railroad. Choo-choo trains. Get the cat, you get it? Choo choo train, track. Anyway, my heart is always filled with love. Everybody on here that's tuning in is somebody that I personally love. My love is vast and wide. I've touched a lot of people in my life, and I can only give praise to Allah. I can only thank our Lord and Savior for allowing me to do that and for allowing me to have this moment with y'all. I love y'all. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing y'all great work. And thank you for being here. And thank you guys for tuning in.
We inspire greatness at track number 9. Stay on the right track and let your light shine. Step by step, reach for what's true. Track number 9, your greatness is waiting for you.